You have to chop it.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening.
See, several of you have beat us to the.
Yes, and 6 thumbs up already. I like seeing that. We only just started. Thank you, everybody, for thumbs up so far. Hope you're all having a wonderful Tuesday. We had quite the snowstorm today, so it hardly felt like a day for planting the garden. That's for sure.
I think though you planted the eggplants because in our last video we had the eggplants out and we did all the peppers.
And we forgot to start them.
We forgot to start the eggplants.
And we really thought we were doing really good this year at being on time with so much stuff. We really were. That's don't hold us to it, but it's a goal for this year to try on time with a few things for the home, the harvesting gardening season.
We'll see how that goes.
I know we're not very good at being on time with it, but anyways, who have we gotten here so far? I saw Remy and Marilyn at Little Homestead on the Beach, Bev from Urban Homesteading, Barbara, hello, Joyce from Manitoba. How are you doing?
Hopefully everybody's doing well tonight.
Yes, hopefully, and hopefully nobody's being blasted by terrible blizzards or anything like that, because it's kind of one of those. March has come in like a lion here, I think. I would call it like a lion.
A little bit. I wouldn't have said it was terrible,
yeah.
But it's...
And Barbara, I said tomorrow I want to make sure I start my leeks and my onions.
Yep.
We did our peppers and eggplants. We also need to start our sweet potato slips pretty soon. Usually mid-March we start those.
We're trying to
do a little later
because last year we planted them because we didn't have a choice. We found some underneath the kitchen cupboard that had sprouted, and it was pretty much either put them in or lose them. Yeah, but we think we did it a little too early last year.
Yeah, last year we started too soon.
Oh, Darren.
So yeah, this year we're gonna kind of go because that was mid-February last year.
It might have been earlier. So
we're thinking kind of mid-March to end of March for starting our sweet potatoes. But it's been a really interesting discussion on how much we actually need to grow because, this is kind of a spoiler alert, but in an upcoming video, we're going to go through what we've actually used so far of what we brought in and canned and stored from last year. So it's kind of interesting.
So what kind of grow light do you have, Jane? Just I'm curious. Because I'm always curious what other people are using to grow. We use the Barina. We've got 4-foot and 2-foot versions, and like them both.
Well, we bought the white light ones and the pink.
Yeah, the full spectrum and the blurple type color.
And we found that when we were growing things under the purple spectrum, they didn't grow up. They stayed really, really compact, but it was really good for our peppers.
Well, it was really good for early seedlings.
But it was horrible for the lettuce and stuff that we were trying to grow in the grow room because it balled out into these beautiful, it wasn't even head lettuce. It was like butter crunch lettuce and stuff, like rosettes, but it never grew up because we had too much light on it.
So we've got to play with the grow room a bit.
Yeah.
I was just curious, but it sounds like Thorhaven's getting the blizzard.
Yeah.
And Marlene's probably going to get it shortly thereafter. We kind of, this morning, we didn't have much snow. It didn't snow a lot, but it kind of snowed all day.
Yeah.
And a little
and a few times it got blowing around our yard. I know not everybody gets to come to our yard, but our yard is like this really sheltered little alcove because the people who had it before us planted all these cedars and spruce trees 25 years ago. So it's like this little haven. And we sit here and go, oh, it's beautiful. And then I go to the end of the driveway to get the kids off the bus. And it's just like, wow. So yeah, it is kind of one of those things that we kind of are disillusioned in our little bubble here sometimes.
Hello, Wren's Homestead. Hopefully you guys are well. You'll be getting storms.
Yeah, it'll be coming.
You're in a different area. You might not get the storms as they go east. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
You'll probably get something.
Yes.
You always say it starts in Manitoba.
Yes. My parents always
this way.
I talk to my parents out in Manitoba. And or my dad will send me a text and he'll be like, oh yeah, we just got 2 feet of snow or whatever, minus 20 something. And I go, oh, well, 3 days from now, that'll be here. It'll either be rain or it'll be something else. But usually whatever's coming kind of changes a little bit and then gets here eventually. So
really hard to believe that it's already March 1st. When you where did January and February go? Although I
Mm-hmm.
suppose for 2 months of the year to go by quickly, those aren't necessarily the worst ones if
No,
you're
but
trying to grow your own food.
it's
Because
now getting to that point where in my mind, I think March 1st, I should be getting going on things. We should be thinking about fencing. We should be thinking about this. We should be thinking about building our chicken coops. And it just is one
not
of
quite
those.
yet. We still have like
Oh,
3 feet of
and I
snow.
think the next week they're calling for cold and snow almost every day. So
That's
I don't know.
interesting. Remy saying that usually get them after Quebec, which makes sense. I think a lot of things loosely track the St. Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know a lot about that, but I'm pretty sure. Um, but it's going to the south. Well, that's the thing we find. It's like the jet stream business, right? Where that band. I think this year where we are, it's like we're in it, we're out of it, we're in it, we're out of it, we're in it,
Oh,
and that's the freeze thaw. So right now, at least we have. I'm going to say it normal winter weather.
it was +2 today. I mean, it was
Well,
it
that's true.
was it was a sticky snowing. But then we're back down into -17 and
But
stuff
at
for the next
least
few days.
being sticky snow, at least it's not slippery.
Yeah, I took a pretty good tumble a couple days ago on my shoulder, and oh gosh, it killed. It's still kind of sore. Somebody's having to do double duty with regular work as well as doing the lifting for chores.
Doing the heavy lifting.
Yes, yeah. It's that carrying hay and stuff. I can't lift this arm up. So, and of course it's my right arm, which really sucks, but
It's
oh
gotten a
well.
lot better.
Anyways, that's my moment of self-pity. I'll be done for the rest of the day now.
You didn't break it or anything. Just
No, but oh boy, it did hurt. Yeah. There were tears. There were. Oh my.
the dilemmas with ice.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, so I think we were kind of going into a little bit of just numbers and things like that of what it actually started last night. We were on me and Mike, and she was talking about how many tomatoes they were debating, I think, a little bit on how many tomatoes to grow. And that got us to thinking about, well, we usually grow about 140 tomato plants, and are we going to do that again this year? And
But in the spirit of never having a simple answer, we were actually talking about this. Actually, I'm going to come back to that because that's good that where Ren's Homestead is, they're saying above freezing for every day this month starting next week.
nice.
That's encouraging. Better off planning anything till April. Yeah, no, and that's just it, right? It's like knowing when to plant, and we start the peppers really early.
Yeah.
And things like the onions
And
and
the
the leeks
eggplants,
we find the eggplants and the peppers are really, really slow for us. But I think it's because May is not hot. So you can plant them out the end of May, beginning of June, but it really doesn't. Don't get me wrong, you get some daytime temperatures that are warmer, but it really doesn't start to get hot until like end of June, and that's when those things really just take off. So
I mean, we're lucky we have the 10 by 10 glass greenhouse that we can move stuff out into, and we started a small hoop house last fall that did not get finished. So again, in textbook Hickorycroft fashion, we're banking on getting a project finished in the spring to allow us to move all these plants that we're starting out to.
I don't think the hoop house is getting finished. It'll be finished for.
It'll
fall.
be done enough to at least put the tomato plants out and have them sheltered for hardening off. That's the problem. The problem is always hardening everything off. I think when you have 500 plants that you got to move in and out all the time, that's a hard part.
Oh, that's hard.
So hopefully we'll have the hoop house done enough to harden things off. That's the plan.
Hello, Plowman's Backyard.
And Crucy, hello.
And hello, Crucy. Hopefully you guys are both doing well. But yeah, in the spirit of never a simple answer, I guess starting with tomatoes. The big thing I think advice I would give anybody when they're trying to figure out how many to start is figure out what, and it sounds completely intuitive, but think of what you're going to do with them, because if you're going to make like pizza sauces and pasta sauces and that kind of stuff, you may want, if you need X number of those, you may want certain kinds of tomatoes. If you're like we were talking today about the one tomato juice we make out of the yellow tomatoes, which is almost like I know it is a fruit juice because tomatoes are fruit, but it's very fruity tasting.
For tomato
is like a specialty product. So even though it's quote unquote a tomato, it kind of doesn't factor into the normal
It's
main crop.
It's my regular spunky tomato juice. It's got spices and garlic and everything else in it. But when I make it with the red tomatoes, somebody doesn't like it.
Oh, no, I do.
You like it as tomato soup, not as tomato juice.
It makes an excellent tomato soup.
So when we tried making it with just the pineapple and white Thomasville tomatoes, he really liked it because they are a fruitier taste. And that's one of the things we're really going down the line of this year, because we've got the Brandywine tomato, the pink Brandywine tomato that we're trying this year, that was shared with us from a couple people actually in the seed challenge. So that's another one. And we want to make sure we grow enough of that we can maybe try it as the juice. Mm-hmm. And in order to do that, you have to have, 18 pounds ripe at one time to make a batch to then can it. So, I mean, it's a forgiving recipe, but.
So last year with the, because with the white Thomasville and the pineapple tomatoes, I think we grew, what did we grow? The pineapple, we didn't have very many. We had 11 of the pineapple and 13 white Thomasvilles. Mm-hmm. So in total, we had 24 tomato plants that were just those two yellow types of tomatoes. And between the two of them, the pineapple started earlier. So this was the other thing too, right? When they started producing, we were kind of just fresh eating them, which is great. But because they were earlier, they kind of got to their peak, and then the white Thomasvilles were starting to come in, and we really liked the mix of the two. Mm-hmm. But so we're probably going to up those two varieties this year.
Yeah, we're going to do more of the yellow ones because we're going through that tomato juice like crazy, where the red tomato juice that I'd put aside for making soups and things like that, we've got more than we could possibly need. I'm still trying to get through the juice from 2020. So we're going to do a little bit less of those. But I saw, and I know you retracted it there, Bev, but the San Marzanos, we switched from the Roma tomato to the San Marzano last year and loved it.
Well, we like the flavor.
Yeah, it held.
They do have a different flavor.
I always found that the Roma tomato it stayed an oranger color than going that nice deep red. And it always tasted unripe to me, if that makes sense. It didn't taste like a ripe, yummy tomato. And the San Marzano were fantastic. So we grew 38 San Marzanos last year, and I used them in pasta sauce, pizza sauce, that sort of stuff. They were amazing. And to be honest, we've gone through pizza sauce like crazy this year, so I probably would still aim for around the 30, maybe not quite, because we've cut back just for trying to eat healthier. We've cut back on pasta, so we haven't been eating as much of the pasta sauce, but certainly the pizza sauce, the barbecue sauce, and they're amazing for ketchup. So I probably will still be doing the same amount. So all in all, we're looking at probably at least 120 tomato plants.
All said
and done.
But another thing we've decided, so we grew 6 of the gray sweet cherry tomatoes last year. 6 was too many.
Yeah, we're only going to do 4.
We're going to have volunteers like there's no tomorrow. They produce so much. Yeah, I think we're going to knock it down to 4. And realistically, I think you could even do 3. But yeah, that's another thing, right? That end use, because even though we did use actually North Shore's recipe on preserving the cherry tomatoes in oil, which works really well. We found it a little limited on what you can use them for, but we use it in pizza, on pizzas and stuff. And anyways, we found a lot of uses for it, but we kind of, what did we do? 3? Did we do 3 jars of that?
Yeah. And we're on our last one now.
And so the 3, maybe 4 jars.
Really nice on pizzas or that sort of thing, like to where you're going to cook them and drive out them.
Little house in the big woods.
One thing I was going to say, Bev, what I found with the San Marzanos, don't start them too early. Because they're an indeterminate one, they shot up. They were the ones that went the leggiest of our tomatoes to start. So you definitely either have to have some good ground to really bury them or don't start them too early. We're holding off until at least April.
Well, we usually hold off until mid to end of April for tomatoes for us. But it's that same thing, right? We are kind of cooler because it's basically the lake, right? The Lake Ontario and St. Lawrence River, they don't warm up fast. So we're in that little bubble that stays warm in the winter, but then it takes a little longer to warm up
summer,
compared to some areas.
It's a good start on the number of tomato plants there. Little homestead on the beach. That's funny. And the other thing we've kind of talked about is we've never been organized enough to do a staggered thing. We do on the Scotia tomatoes. That was the only one we ever really staggered.
Well, we don't bother staggering, like you talked about maybe with the cherry tomatoes, to be able, if we get the hoop house done,
to have them
growing some later in the year. But for the most part, a lot of the ones that we would do,
they're indeterminate, so they're
indeterminate, or we just don't need to stagger them, I guess. But I think 42 is a pretty good number. Like that's I can't remember what you grew this year, Remy. But
no, he's at the 42-day one.
Oh, 42-day. Oh, sorry. I thought you meant 42 tomatoes. But still,
the 42-day one. What's the subarctic plenty that we grew last year was supposed to be 50 days.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was longer, but it was okay. But it's one that we decided not to do again. We didn't. Yeah, but I don't know if that's the one that you've got going, the subarctic one, or not. But definitely the shorter season growing type were nice to have because we had them really early. They just weren't our favorite for flavor. That's all.
Yeah, we just didn't like that particular variety all that much, which is the nice part about tomatoes. There's always another variety to try.
But someone's very excited for a long-term storing tomato.
Yes.
Wink, wink.
If you happen to bring some of those, we would definitely be very interested in them.
Yeah.
For
going to grow our OSU blues. Yeah. They were just a little bit disappointing.
We liked them. We grew them for the novelty of the blue tomatoes.
But they weren't really blue, so
they didn't really go as blue as we thought they were going to, which I know there's lots of factors to that. They tasted okay, but they were a little too juicy. They didn't have enough flavor to warrant, like with their black prints, they're very juicy, but with the black prints have enough flavor. It's worth boiling it down to make a flavored tomato sauce with them, like special tomato sauce with them. But the OSU we didn't find quite as.
I was going to say, Remy, was it you that was talking about the salsa? That you like to make salsa? I make, and I haven't done a video on it, but I make charred salsa on the grill.
Yes.
We have a charcoal barbecue, and you grill all your jalapenos, all your garlic, your onions, and your tomatoes all on the grill. And then you bung it into a food processor, and you just kind of chop it up a little bit, and then you just bring it to a boil, and then you put apple cider vinegar. I don't know. Anyways, I can send you the recipe because if you grow some of the it worked with any tomato. The Roma tomatoes or the San Marzanos were nice for it because they stayed
fleshier.
You want a thicker flesh type one. But anyways, it's an amazing salsa. Absolutely amazing. I apologize. I'm getting excited talking and my table's shaking.
I'm going to agree with you, Remy. I didn't really like tomatoes like tomato sauces and stuff and ketchups and that, yes, but I never was a big tomato fan, and that's actually one of the things. Like I'm quite converted now, but it's that variety because tomatoes are one of those things. You can grow it cheaper, you can grow a ton of it. It's a lot of work, but you can't beat the flavor because you can get things that you can't buy. As far as flavors and textures and all this other stuff with them. So I like kind of experimenting. Well, it's like the white tomaso and the pineapple tomatoes that we're really big fans of now. They're not normal tomatoes, to put it bluntly. Definitely
I wrote
agree
down
with Kendra, the Muscovich.
Yeah.
So you like growing the Muscovich? Because I have tried that now. This was years ago, and it didn't do great for me. That being said, we're both a lot better at growing tomatoes, so we may have to try it again.
I wrote it down just to have a look up and see. We've probably already got our selection for this year, but it's kind of nice to, take out ones that you don't like, bring in ones that you do, and sort of figure it out. It's like our paprika peppers this year. We're growing 3 kinds, but we're not going to do that in the future. This is just we're growing 12 plants of each one so that we have enough to make a jar of paprika from each kind and decide which one we like best. And anything else is a bonus.
Yeah.
Basically.
I definitely find too, because I was never a big salsa fan, and you're a bigger salsa fan than I am, but the fermented and the charred salsa, I really like those. They're the
Yeah.
flavor's very, very different from I guess what you would normally get as salsa.
Oh, the fermented one I love, but it's like that tangy, fresh, out of the garden kind of taste, which is nice because in the middle of winter, we're still eating it and it still tastes like we just picked it out of the garden. And I love that.
Mhm.
But the charred salsa is of a different, I don't even know. I don't even know. I've been making that one
Yeah, it's very different.
for years, and that barbecued charred taste, and you leave the blackened skins in the salsa so it has that flavor. Oh, it's so good. Hi Dave Knight, how you doing?
That would be awesome if you brought some. Remy's car is going to smell like tomato plants. That's not a terrible thing, I suppose.
No.
Make
lots of Mexican food.
That's something we should do a little bit more of. We do a bit, but there's a rave review on your ketchup recipe.
We have not bought ketchup in years. It is, once you go to that homemade ketchup recipe, it's really hard. I mean, with the kids at first, we kept the squeezy bottles and we actually put the ketchup into the squeezy bottles for them. It was
a mental thing
because it was a mind thing. And eventually they got to the point that nope, like Alex takes jars of my canned ketchup and Thai sauce and stuff to school to share with her friends. It's so funny.
I'd say definitely give the peppers another try. Peppers can be kind of finicky.
Well, the one thing that we find is we do, and this isn't a bit of an investment for anybody that doesn't do it, but we put them under some real intense lights, really keeping it close to the plant to start them. Like we honestly, we've had amazing success with the peppers just by, we start them now and come mid-March, they're basically up in their little pots and we just keep the lights really low on them and lots of powerful lighting so that they don't grow up. They just put it all into the roots.
Yeah.
And as soon as you then bump them out, they stay really small. Sometimes we've even had peppers growing on them, yet they're only this size, this tall.
Well, they're like light.
Yeah. But then once you move them outside, they just go mad.
Yeah, once they adjust.
Yeah.
That is good to know about the Muscovich. That, like you said, it's a good early season, but doesn't necessarily compare to some of the later seasons. I think that's the fun part about tomatoes, right? You can experiment with so much variety. And then when you find that variety, you can actually keep it.
Yeah.
Because the separation distances are not crazy.
Armana.
I've heard of that one, never tried it. It's an orange tomato.
And delicious, she says.
We'll have to look into that because we don't...
we really like having the colored tomatoes. I don't know.
The colors in vegetables, period, is kind of fun. Like,
yeah. I know it's totally there is different health benefits to different colored food, but it is sort of that appealing presence. It's like our potatoes. We have all red potatoes, all blue potatoes. There's something really pretty when you do that chopped up roasted potato mixture and it's all different colors. It just
and mashed potatoes made with a potato that has blue flesh are pretty cool too. Because they're not bright blue, but they're blue enough.
Oh no, I made them. No, I made the mashed potatoes with the all blues.
Yeah, no.
Okay, sorry. We have ones that just have blue skin as well. I thought.
Yeah, the flesh makes it interesting.
But yeah,
gives it that tinge. Rose hip barbecue sauce. That sounds interesting. That's something we actually don't.
Where did you see that? Who said that one? Oh, video on that this year, please.
Yes, because where we used to live, we had quite the rose hip bush.
Yeah, and we want to start one here. We just got to find somewhere that it can go wild because that was our problem at the old place. We planted it near the house, and it just took over.
Oh, it was nice, but
yeah.
Kendra says she's never found a homemade ketchup she actually likes, but she's curious to try ours.
Oh, yours. It's good.
I shouldn't say ours. Yours.
It's good. Yeah, you'll just have to. It's in the kitchen. It's in the kitchen, right? In the kitchen playlist. The ketchup's in there. I also have a really, really good barbecue sauce. Did I do? I don't know if I've done a video.
If we didn't, we will do it this year because it's really good.
But I'm going to do the pizza sauce next week with frozen tomatoes.
Next week or the week after.
The pizza sauce. Oh, yeah. And we're plowing through it this year, so I got to make more anyway.
What kind of peppers did you grow, Chrissy? Because this is one thing we're going to try the California Wonders again, but I remember trying them years and years ago.
Remy, is a really good idea. Oh. Sorry.
Oh, I'm going to finish the pepper.
Okay.
Tried them years and years and years ago, and they really didn't do very well, like the more conventional bell type peppers. And then we switched to some, and like our totally sweet Italian frying peppers, like they're like a weed. They want to grow. They're slow, but once they're slow to get to that point, but then by late summer, they just kind of go mad and they're just covered in peppers. But definitely, if depending on what you tried, it's worth trying some other stuff because you might just need to find something that does well for you, like where you are.
I'm thinking because, what zone is Cindy Squirrel? Because we sent her the Tolly seeds and they did amazing for her this year.
She's Cochrane. So
yeah, she's zone 3. And the Tolly seeds that we sent her grew amazing. Let us know, Crucy, because if you want to try them, we'll send some. I don't think because we didn't send the Tolly's ones to him. We sent the cherry tomatoes.
Yeah. If you want to try them,
let us know.
We can
send them.
You should get some peppers off of.
But
it's funny actually that Remy mentions that about the book because we've talked
about it. Yeah,
putting the book together.
We thought it would be we were going to do it as Christmas. We were thinking for Christmas it'd be a neat little Christmas giveaway gift idea.
Well, maybe we can have you pull our finger out and.
How long is the conference from now? 2 months.
So yeah.
2 months. Oh boy. Well, the recipe part's the easy part. It's figuring out printing it. Together. That's thingy.
Watch this space. We may actually do that.
We've never been very successful with jalapenos. I don't know what it is about jalapenos, and we like to save seeds from our own peppers, and every time we save seeds, they would never grow. We were not lucky with the jalapenos.
Hello, Bucket List Homestead, and
no worries. Me and New Acres. Hello.
Hello, guys.
But we switched to the Black Hungarian.
They're a little bit smaller, but they're about the same heat.
They look exactly the same as a jalapeno, except for they're black and then they turn red instead of green and turn red. And
they're pretty good.
Some of them get pretty good size, but a lot of them stay sort of smaller. We tend to use the bigger size ones for like jalapeno poppers, and then I use the smaller ones up for curries and things like that.
They work pretty good for that.
And they grow amazing. We've never had a problem growing them. And I think that's the one thing we found with, and we're growing them from seed ourselves. The jalapenos, I always ended up resorting to buying the plants already started from some, not seedlery, what do you call that?
Like nursery.
A nursery, because I could never get them to go. Never.
You should definitely keep that though. You should because you're really good at making lists, Marlene, because your seed stuff. You should make a list of videos, and there's one, your rose hip. You'd have to wait a while for it. But I bet you that would be a good one.
Yes.
A long time in the coming, but it would be good.
Salsa verde. I've never made that.
No, we've never tried that. Angie says, just the topic she needs to talk about.
Well, we kind of got this from your live last night about how many tomatoes to grow and what. And then we got thinking about things today and talking about it and going, well, we normally grow X. Do we need to grow that? And so that has led to a video coming in a short time here of what we've gone through so far and what is still really stocked in the pantry. Because that's one of the things with growing so much. I'll admit it. We've never grown as much food before as what we did in 2021. And we managed to preserve probably 80% of it.
Yeah.
Whether it was canned, frozen, fermented,
some manner
or it was like potatoes, things like that. And it's interesting when you go back and look at it and go, okay, we're not eating through that as much as I thought we would, or we're going through something like crazy and I didn't think we would. So that's the video to come on just how we're doing with getting through our 3,000 pounds of food.
Just kind of catching up here. Hot peppers, no problem, but I have... I hate them. Yeah, see, this is actually one thing about hot peppers, because this was when we were trying to figure things out. We looked up is it Scoville unit? I think they call it. I think that's what they call it.
Oh, the heat rating.
The heat rating.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was called.
Because we do like spice, and it's good in things to a point, but we're not.
Don't forget thumbs up, everybody.
We're not crazy spicy people, so we're always kind of on the fence of like what to try. So the ones that Mike and Angie sent us, the yellow ones, lemon drop, peppers,
that was what it was.
Those sounded interesting because, like we said in the video, they were less in heat than something we already grow that we like. So we're like, oh, well, if they've got an interesting flavor, that could be really interesting to try. So we'll watch this space. Peppers when I transplanted them last year. Never again. The new flowers came. See, we've had that too when they get a lot of flowers early on. Our Doe Hills did that this past year. The
only thing we did was we ended up marking ones that went flower outside for saving seeds because we had all of our peppers in the same room. And we had when they started flowering, and we didn't know if they were going to have crossed because some of our stuff even got planted with peppers already on it.
A couple of them did, yeah.
Yeah,
but
we didn't pluck them off either because it just, I don't know if it was by choice or just because we were lazy, but
well, it was kind of that catch-22 of whether to do it or not. But we didn't do it with the Doe Hills, and we still found, oddly enough, this year they didn't do fantastic. They were very stunted, and I don't know why. We'd grown them in a raised bed.
We put them in terrible ground.
Yeah, that may have been why.
It was terrible ground. It was packed hard.
We didn't feed them enough.
And we never watered them.
Also true.
That's our style of gardening. And that's why, if we pass you seeds that we say are good, they're good because they grow even if you don't look after them at all. Because that's the kind of seeds we like. Those are the ones we save. The ones that manage to grow without doing anything. That's the ones. But as to Dave and Angie, yes, we do need to start a support group for this addiction.
Support group.
But in this support group, I think there should be a lot of sharing.
Does that mean we all become enablers?
We're all enablers. Yeah, there we go. Enabling the seed addiction.
See, we've never tried the cowboy candy. It sounds good, but we've never tried it. So we'll have to.
That's the jalapeno one, right?
But I'm sure you
it's like a pickled jalapeno, like a sweet pickle.
Yeah, I think so.
I think they're kind of similar to the bread and butter pickles, but they're jalapenos or something.
I think you could potentially do that with the Black Hungarians.
Yeah,
they would make the same thing. Enable for sure. Well, I guess that's kind of insert shameless plug here for the Canadian Seed Challenge. Why we even thought to start it in the first place was, realistically, we joke about it being a problem, but collecting seeds and learning how to grow seeds and save them and all that stuff, that's like, should be open to everybody. Mm-hmm. So it's like when you can share things and share varieties that do well. And I always get really excited. Like, it's nice to know what varieties did well for people, but it's even more exciting to get seeds from them or starts or whatever that they've saved varieties that they like, because then it's like one bump up from when you buy seeds in as far as adaption and all that sort of stuff.
Do the seed addiction challenge, like it. So Angie says they're nothing like bread and butter pickles. She hates those. So we're going to have to try it. Hopefully this year we'll have to plant more. As we just decide that we're not going to plant too many, but maybe we should plant a bunch more Black Hungarian ones so we can try it.
Well, we could do that.
Because they're very similar to the jalapenos. Hot peppers burn twice, yes.
No, I agree with Kendra. Never water any plants. We don't water much. We water a little bit, and
the raised beds.
The raised beds we find we have to water a bit, but other than that, we don't water either.
Yeah.
Kind of when they're germinating or whatever, like the beans and stuff. Well, sometimes if we don't get rain when we need it, we'll water it. But yeah.
I'm just thinking like
hot peppers, they burn twice.
Yeah.
Very true. Oh, that's too funny.
Okay.
The sweet peppers.
Yeah.
I tried to grow. I definitely find sweet peppers are a bit more finicky. If you can find a variety that grows well for you, i.e. grows like a weed, wants to grow like a hot pepper, then that's an awesome
that's the one thing we like, pardon me, about the Tollies ones is that they taste nice, even green. So it's nice to have them where if they don't ripen off to red, you can still pick them and use them.
Mm-hmm. Peppers in a sweet syrup. As a flavor, like we're gonna have to try it, because I remember watching their Wilderstead's video on that when they first put it out, and they made it makes a lot.
Yes, and so many people have made it and talked about it. Yes,
a lot of sugar, apple cider vinegar, and some spice.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Honey Badgers is just hitting you with loaded question.
What
she knows exactly what's going to happen.
What do I think the perfect size garden
Surprise
is?
her. Surprise her.
With a short answer? The short answer, a garden that will produce what you need to survive for a year or to thrive for a year. There's the short answer. But what that actually looks like, I guess it does depend, because how I always have to go back to you for the numbers. What did we garden? What was our garden last year?
We were about a little bit over a tenth of an acre.
So what's that work out to, like, square footage?
Oh gosh.
I'm not the mathematician. I cannot do mental math.
An acre is like 42,000.
So tenth is not very much.
No. It was about we were just under 4,000 square feet. I'm pretty sure.
So I guess it really depends, like the size of your family.
Or just over 4,000.
Because this is something actually we didn't mention last night, Mike and Angie. But it's like there's just the two of you, right? Versus there's four of us. That changes it too, because you might not need as much of some things pending. That's where that's like, I don't know if there is no simple answer to that question.
I think it's whatever your space will allow, because anything counts.
I think if you were counts. Anything counts. If you, I don't know, like what's an average? Let's say what's an
20
average
20 by 30. Oh,
like an average lot, like a subdivision lot. I know they're not big. It's like
probably an eighth of an acre.
It's like I don't know if anybody's too familiar with Guten gardening, but like they're basically converting every every possible area they can that's left in their yard around their house, because they're in a suburban area.
She's laughing. You haven't even got to scroll down, but she is laughing so hard right now because you could not answer that question simply.
I can't answer any question simply.
Oh yeah, see, she'll be laughing. Don't you worry.
Most likely. Goat cheese and red pepper jelly. Yeah, I
love red pepper jelly. I'm the only one who eats it though, so I made it 2 years ago and I still have a bunch of jars. But this year we're gonna have sheep cheese, so maybe you'll use some.
Well,
the mint jalapeno jelly is also amazing on the goat's milk cheese, because we used to have goats, so we used to make that sort of stuff on goat milk cheese. So
hello, Green Thumb Pepper. How are you tonight? Hopefully well. Hopefully you're not getting too much of.
Oh, Bev, I'll look for it if you have done one on there. I'll go on and have a look, because yeah.
So is that a Cherokee purple pepper? If so, I'm curious. The little house in the big woods.
Or is that the tomato? Isn't it a tomato?
I don't know. That's the thing, right? There's so many varieties. I don't think there's so many varieties of beans, tomatoes, peppers that you can't keep track of all the names. Exactly.
Bucket list homestead. Agree. We're actually going to slowly. Well, we're slowly converting almost all of our yard into garden space that isn't too shaded, anyways. But garden space is, as funny as that sounds, when we have 38 acres, because of the shape of our property being very narrow and long, we actually have a very small garden space. We have plenty of space that we can run livestock back to. And obviously we have the apple orchard at the back, a wild one, but we still have it.
The plan is to fill in closer to the house. So we have space, but it's like, we're still, even though we have 38 acres, we still want to eventually maximize our growing space. We have some other constraints,
and right now we need some of that space to be for animals.
Well, in the short term.
Yeah. But eventually they will move a little bit further away so that we can use the front for
following kind of permaculture practices. Yeah. Because if it's closer to you, you're likely to use it more and look after it better. But I didn't know you were, because was it not this year? It was last. You've moved recently, Green Thumb Pepper. So we're roughly in the province. You don't have to say exactly, but like geographically speaking.
Yeah, because we saw, because you were moving off of the homestead. Was that right? Like, because I thought you'd moved anyway. We try to follow everybody, and we apologize if we're out of the loop on some things. But we did see that you were moving again, and we sat and went, I thought he'd just moved.
Well, relatively speaking.
Well, yeah, you know.
Yeah, you were right. Not going to get a straight answer from me. It also depends what you're going to grow, though, right? Like, it's like the squash the advocacy for squash. If you're growing squash and you're going to grow a lot of squash, like hundreds of pounds of it, you're going to need more garden space than if you absolutely detest squash, which I don't know how anybody could absolutely detest all squash, but
you can't detest it. You can get tired of it.
Well, true. But so it depends on what you're growing too, right? And the more vertical you go, this is our big thing with the beans. It's more infrastructure, but we can save some space. So I think that's where it's loaded, because if you just grew everything in the ground like a more conventional row crop, I think your garden space would have to be a lot bigger. If you start companion planting and layering and growing vertical, and it's like the classic Three Sisters, where you are using that same space for multiple production. Crops. When you start getting into that stuff and layering like that, then I think you might find that you can reduce it, but it makes everything more complicated too. Mm-hmm. Just like the answer. Going to scroll down here because we were a little bit behind. Oh, Bev might have to check.
You have to make some tomorrow. Nice. I'll be watching for that.
Cherokee purple is a tomato.
Yeah.
But that pepper sounds good too. We'll just invent random names for random vegetables.
Yeah.
I moved from Ottawa in last April to Lindsay. Okay. Then moved in November to the outskirts of Toronto, and I'm moving back to Ottawa. Oh, well, you'll be pretty close to us then, relatively speaking.
Not excited for a breakup for you, but
no.
You're moving back to be practically internet neighbors now. That's how we view it anyways.
Oh, that's definitely in the circle of internet neighbors.
Yes.
For sure. And I lived in Lindsay for a while too. I went to school there, so I know that area fairly well. A purple cherry tomato. Looks black. See, that's the neat thing too about the colors, because it's like what you said. There is all sorts of things about antioxidants, and color tends to put it really bluntly, color tends to bring other nutrient values to something. I think, again, I'm talking about Good Gardening, but he went into much better detail in a video on it. Mm-hmm. Of you want that color palette, which is
spaghetti squash. Thumbs down here as well. We grew that 1 year, and I said never again.
Oh. Well, the one thing we found is
it tasted awful.
Well, and it's hard to use. We found it's hard to use.
Yeah, we didn't use it all. That's
and
true.
The animals didn't like it because
it's all right for once in a while, but it was not our thing. So then we ended up taking that out of the repertoire of squashes. But while Plowman's is still in here, this is totally off topic, but just bear with me. I will look down below when we catch up to your answer. But curious for the convention, Homesteader Convention, are you bringing your daughter? The only reason I ask is because our daughter Alex, our son James doesn't really want to come, but our daughter Alex really wants to come. And I'm on the fence as to whether it's something that other people will bring their kids to. Because, I don't know. We have no idea what to expect from it. I know nobody does because it's the first time for it going. But anyways, I was just curious. I know they're not quite the same age, but I was just curious as to whether your daughter was showing interest in coming as well. Anyway.
That you will still be gardening, and a 1,600 square foot garden plot is pretty good size. Like, there you go. There's the answer. There would be an ideal garden size, arbitrarily picked for one person. Yeah. You can do a lot with that kind of space. A lot. And yes, we'll be very close, which is pretty awesome.
And me and you is just outside Ottawa Valley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're definitely in the internet neighbor bubble.
Yeah, well, sure. Plowman's is me and you acres neighbor.
Yep.
So it's so interesting when you start, I'm going to say it, finding people, because in today's day and age, 2-3 hours is not that big of a whatever, like we often talk about the fact it's like in the spring, I'm going to be digging up a bunch of mint and I'm going to take it to Angie because she wanted mint. And the only way to get mint to do amazing is if we just dig it up and bring it to you, because there is so much of it. But just things like that, when you're close enough that you can do that, is really quite nice.
It is interesting with a lot of the purple vegetables. Like I see there's a few people talking about it, how they do that color change, because you were talking about that with the magic beans when you were a kid.
Yes,
love the purple beans when you
turn green when you cook them.
One thing about, we're going to go back to the spaghetti squash thing. So one thing we actually tried.
Yay, another thumbs down to spaghetti squash.
Well, one thing we actually, in praise of Canada crookneck squash, I think we talked about this last week, but we did the, what's it called? The star fruit or whatever. The thingy that cuts it into little like pieces of pasta. So we took the neck of the
spiralizer
and put it through that, and it was actually really good.
People do that with zucchini and yeah.
The crookneck, the Canada crookneck was firmer, but it was quite good.
Yeah.
No, this is kind of where we're at too, Kendra. It's like, will there be other children? And it's going to be a longer day, so we're on the fence. We'll figure it out. But
you can plug it in.
Yeah, companion planting. Definitely when you can find companions that work well, I think it's worth it at the small scale because you can tend to it better. It makes it more complicated, but in one sense, but you also get benefits. Rems.
Yeah. So Ren's is 4 hours from you.
Well, in the grand scheme of the internet, that's still pretty close, but I know what you mean. It's that's like the good and the bad about this, right? Because we get to meet people literally all over the world, but definitely all over Canada, and it's like, I don't know.
And then you start going, I want to live there. That's what we always said. And it's just one of those things we always said, if we ever moved, we would be moving up towards, like we said, me and you acres and Plowman's and what's your other neighbor? Oh my gosh, I'm having a total mind. Blessed.
I can't think of the name right off the top of my head.
Anyways, but like you guys have got such an awesome little circle there that's just growing, and that's fantastic. Not that we're planning to move. We love it here, but it's just one of those things we often say, I'd never move way up north. I don't want to be by myself. I want to be part of a little community.
And we're really far from we jumped ahead here. Little house in the big woods in Idaho.
Yes, very far.
And Ren's Homestead says spaghetti squash is getting severely cyberbullied. I will say this: spaghetti squash is one of those plants that I don't think, if you grow it, you don't need a lot of bushes or vines.
Really, Remy? You love spaghetti squash? How intriguing!
Well, I used to like it too. We just kind of moved on to others that we. Don't
ask me why you strike me as the type of person that wouldn't like.
This is my thing with the squash is because of this balance. Like, we've tried doing the hand pollinating and stuff to keep more diversity, and it kind of sucks to put it bluntly. It's a lot of work, and it doesn't always work. So you really have to pay a lot of attention to it to get it to work right, and then you could still end up at the end of the season with no seeds. So we just kind of X'd out anything that it was like, because I will admit, I don't mind spaghetti squash, but it just didn't make sense for us to try to keep it. So we're not completely, it's Cuba Peppo.
So it crosses with the
zucchinis and the summer squashes. Yeah.
That's my encyclopedia. I don't even Google. What's that? Tell me the answer, Chris. We should go to a trivia night. We should have a night.
That'd be kind of fun.
I got to figure out how to do that, but we should do it.
I'm sure you can get a few 1,000 pounds of food out of it.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah. Like we. Again,
well, and the one thing we said, like I don't know if your space ends up, because you're renting a space, if it's a nice rectangle. That's the one thing that we found. Bang for buck. Our rectangular garden that we just way more than our one that was a lot bigger, but it was little pockets in all different shapes, like the one that she had. We put a chicken coop in it, and then we put something else in it, and then so it has all these little pockets, and it has the asparagus patch, and it has blackberries. So it all eats into it, and then it kind of doesn't give you a nice space to do a whole bunch of stuff.
But at the same time, it does
give you
But it does give you a good space to split things up when you're trying to keep them separate. So there's a balance there. I think that's the other part too about size. more complicated answers to the question of size of garden. I think it depends. If you're just growing kind of, I'm going to say it, put and take, you put it in, you take it out, and you buy again and do again. You can probably, and I'm generalizing, do that in a smaller space because you don't care about separation distances and all that sort of stuff. If you're going to save seeds from the vast majority of things, then you get a little more complicated
Hidden
because
blessings.
you've got to space it out more, right? So then your garden space expands. And the other part to that this is what we find a lot too. I'm going to pick on tomatoes. You have to keep them 3 meters apart for most varieties. That's not very far, but then you end up with all these little pockets. But then you get your beans, and they're around the 3 meter mark too, right? So you can stagger those, but then you kind of end up with these places where it's like, well, now I have space that if I'm rotating, I can put something else in there that I maybe wasn't going to grow. So you get garden creep. Once you start saving seeds, you get garden creep. That's a good way to put it.
And then you grow more things because you're like, well, I need to put a gap there anyways. So what am I going to put in it?
What did I see? Back up. Bucket list saying they're looking in New Brunswick. There's a part of me that would love to live out east.
Yeah.
I won't lie about that. It's other practicalities of things that would make it hard.
Yeah. My thing is, by the time Chris retires and whatever, I wouldn't want to move. I kind of want to have it all done by that point so that you're not.
Or if you're moving, you'd have to simplify.
Yeah. You'd be downsizing if you're moving, not doing as much.
Yeah. That's a whole nother discussion. Where are you? Where am I going here? Me and you, Hickorycroft Farm for new neighbors.
Well, we said you never know, but it is one of those things is you start to really see the value of having neighbors and things that do similar things.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, basically.
And it is hard.
It's the community type thing.
Not saying I want to live on. I hate the idea of somebody owns some plot of land and you get a half acre and you get a half acre I hate that. Absolutely hate that. I like the idea of everybody being their own entity, but you just happen to be neighbors. It's great.
Oh, that's another discussion.
I know.
We won't get into that.
We won't get into communal living. We won't get into communal living discussions.
Okay, so green thumb pepper,
a market garden,
garden style. Well, that'll be good.
I would love for all of ours to be set up that way. I really would. It just for watering purposes, everything like our one that we built last year that we're expanding to double the size this year is perfect. It's a rectangle. We're going to double the rectangle, and it would just work for soaker hoses or things like that. If you're going to do that, like, if you've got some things that are more delicate, it's like the rice that we're planting this year. We do have to keep it wet. That's going to be a challenge for us, Angie, but we're going to try. Watch this space.
We have it. We're sprouting it right now.
Yeah, so. It's sprouting. So fingers crossed it'll go. Although it's amazing. It said the little packet said 250 seeds. And I was like, there's no way that's 250 seeds. So we started counting and go, okay, maybe it is. And then, so we looked it up and it was only 250 seeds per head. Mm-hmm. And you get about 12 heads per plant. And we went, jeepers, you need to grow a lot of rice to get a bag of rice.
Well, that's the dilemma with grain.
So, but it'll be really interesting to try it to see because they're
packed with energy, but.
Yeah, even the 200, we kind of estimate if we start the 250, we're probably going to end up with 200 plants and 200 times 12. And then you've got the number of thingies. So we figure we might get 3 kg of rice.
But if you take that
if we can grow it well, if we can keep it alive.
But if you take that, save it, and grow it again, then you can expand pretty quick. It's just sounds like there's a few people that have looked into moving out east, just from going through the chat.
Well, the stuff is so crazy expensive here.
Well, yeah.
I mean, like, I don't know about, we've not actually looked elsewhere. We just kind of keep tabs on stuff around our place, our area.
Hello, Miles.
And definitely we recognize the fact that we got into owning this place at just the right time.
Yeah.
Because we could not afford to have it now.
Yeah, I think Green Thumb Pepper's got a good point. Like, growing the storable food is a good idea.
Yeah.
And that's a balance too, right? Because the fresh eating stuff, and like you said, when you talk about size of gardens, having a garden that you're just going to eat out of, I'm going to take greens out of it because greens are kind of a full succession thing to really have any more than a couple meals. But like the tomatoes and stuff, to have a few plants like that doesn't take a lot of space, right? You can eat out of the garden for the summer relatively easily, relatively speaking. It's when you start extrapolating that over a whole year and you think that how much food one human needs, that it starts to get pretty crazy pretty quick.
On the side note, just in case nobody is subscribed to Green Thumb Prepper, definitely go check him out. He's actually the one that got us thinking that we have to do the paprika peppers this year, because we watched his video on smoking the paprikas. That made us go, why don't we do that? So we are. I believe you did the Alma ones, right? Was it not?
I think that was what you had, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was. So we're trying the Alma, and then we have 2 other kinds.
Oh, everybody's going to jump ship, leave Ontario, and go to...
oh, gosh.
Go and live closer to Remy.
I don't know. Remy showed us some of the stuff he's looking at. It wasn't any cheaper than here. That's the dilemma. That's the dilemma.
Well, you've got to go pretty far north.
Yeah.
I think in Ontario even. It's hard to find people nearby that have similar interests. Yeah. No, I don't think you're an oddball at all, Crucy. I think because we've said that for years.
Yeah. Although you're trying to do it right in town too, which I guess that's a struggle all on your own. You know, that's even an extra layer, I guess. Where it would be nice to have a community that does it.
Well, and that's the other part about. I'm going to say,
I want to.
In some ways, we're not isolated, but we are kind of isolated, right? So it's like, this isn't the livestock talk, but it's like with us with the chickens, having to have so many of them. There's nobody around us that has.
Yeah.
There's a few people that have chickens, but and you're kind of the same with vegetables to a degree for certain things, right?
Yeah.
Some things are easier to get, and some things produce a lot more seeds, so they're a lot easier. I eat tomatoes. You don't need a lot of tomato plants. One tomato plant will replace itself exponentially.
Yes. How much space will that take up? I don't know if I missed something.
I think
further up.
He might be talking about the rice.
Oh, okay. The rice. They're planted. I believe it's 6 inches apart. They were quite close.
Yeah,
we start them ahead in the and so we're sprouting them now because we were supposed to start them 8 weeks before last frost, and they have to be kept moist, but they don't need a patty. So yeah, we're going to just row plant them and 6 inches apart. So it's not. We figured it would only be 4 rows of rice, not even.
Oh, it won't be a big area.
So it's just sort of something to try it. Angie gave us the seeds in the Canadian Seed Challenge exchange there, and we're super excited to give it a try. And like we said, we can save the seeds for next year. Although I would like to figure out hulling them, which you don't need to do if you're saving the seeds. But I would like to take some to figure out if we can do it before we go and save a whole bunch of seeds.
That's a whole nother part, right?
Because I Googled about how to hull the rice, and that seems like a whole ordeal all on its own.
But that's any grain.
Well, yeah.
They all have.
Hey, Caitlin's Family Farmstead, how are you?
Yeah, but you come in with a really good point. But where do you go?
Yeah.
And you're right. You don't like we. It was crazy enough that we moved.
Yeah.
That was not something I'd necessarily want to do again. So if we ever move again, it's a big change. I think.
Yeah.
Likely. So hope you don't have to move. That's crazy that the situation on the U-Haul is that way.
Wow.
Cheaper to go and get it
yeah.
than to drop it off. That is insane. I wonder what the rationale is for that.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, who'd go up?
Oh, it did.
Oh, and Pedmar, hello. How are you?
Yeah, grow where you're planted.
Have a good night, Little Homestead on the Beach. Thanks for coming in. Oh, we did that together. It sounded so magical.
In sync. Yeah, I know. Ren's homestead. They moved all their stuff. We were traveling to them, and their live. Was that last week? And it's doable. It's doable. Anything's doable, but
we only moved an hour, and boy, oh boy, did it ever feel.
Yeah.
Now, yeah. I mean, then there was that other channel that we watched that moved from southern Ontario all the way out to Thunder Bay area.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it was like 4 trips. They took all animals, everything, and they had like 5 kids or 6 kids, and
oh yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, grow your planted. Just do wish to have more acreage and privacy. Yeah, no, that's fair. Well, we'll see how the rice goes for us. It's totally an experiment, and there are some other varieties of rice to try. This is a long grain rice. It doesn't. We're going to keep it fairly wet because
famous last words.
Well, that's the plan to keep it fairly well watered. We actually are going to maybe try growing it in blue barrels because they keep a bit of moisture in.
And we also tend to look after the raised garden a little bit better than the.
And see how it does.
It just depends how many of the seeds actually sprout as to how big the plot we would need, because it might be a lot of blue barrels. So we'll have to see.
Well, I think everybody's kind of hitting on the thing about land is going to be expensive, but then real estate is what it says. And I know Thorhaven, if he's still in here, would somewhat disagree with me, but there isn't any more land really being created. So
yeah,
not fast enough to.
Well, we've noticed around here, people are putting the houses up for sale now. Like we're coming into that season, and like they're just still just flying off. They're going so fast. I mean, I didn't even notice it was for sale. So by the time I go to check and see how much it was, it's not there anymore.
Well, I'm glad we've inspired you, Miles, to keep track.
Data sheets, plastic fridge. We have it too.
It's worthwhile. I think. What are we now? Our year is a bit different because we do it in the calendar year just to break it down, because otherwise it goes on forever, which is really the reality of life. But what are we? We're already up to like 150 pounds. Yeah, it's mostly eggs for us,
and our sheep. We did our sheep.
Yeah, and some geese. So that's technically from last year, but it's just the way the cards fell, and is what it is. But still not bad. Yeah, they put in. They drove with all their stuff. That's a lot of stuff.
Our Miles has. We have a list for recording weights of everything that came in. Then I have a list of what has been canned for the year and what's gone into freezer, and we weigh it all before it goes in, and everything gets done that way. And then there's a list of things we need for prepping.
Oh boy, this jumped way ahead. Okay, there we go. Yeah, see, and Pedmar saying the same thing. It's crazy everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go into the doom, but the impending doom. But yeah, any excuse for things to go up, and I think we all know what the
and they never go back down.
Part, no, it never will. You won't own anything. You'll be happy. Oh, you own nothing.
Don't start about the Great Reset stuff. The be happy and not own a thing or whatever it is. Yeah.
Well, we had to do our move in stages, just because between the sheep, we had the goats at the time,
2 horses.
Like we had a lot of bigger livestock that was moving.
Chickens.
And the chickens and everything else. Yeah. Smaller stuff wasn't super bad, but
when we bought our place, it was interesting because the people who bought our house didn't have a house that they were selling. They just bought our place. And then we were then buying the place that we're in, and she was buying another house, and they all closed the same day. So we all had to move one at a time. So everything was held up by the people that were buying our house, so that the money went in the bank, so that we could then pay for this place, so that she could move out and pay for the next in here. And they hadn't even bought their house yet, so they were still here. We're here. They did let us run the sheep into the barn. They cleaned out a stall for us, so that
it was
because we had
absolutely
asked.
pouring rain.
It was so it was
when we
such an
moved.
awful day on that Halloween.
Yeah.
But anyways, it was quite the ordeal, and it was only an hour, and we were lucky because we had a second plot of land at our old place, and so we were able to leave the horses and stuff for a couple weeks. We didn't move them until we got some fencing done and stuff here, but we still had to drive back there every day to do chores and stuff. So
that was annoying.
Yeah.
I don't miss that.
Yeah.
Um,
Quebec is cheap land. I don't speak French, which really puts a little damper on it, but I know there's been some beautiful places that we've seen for sale and heard about in Quebec, and it's just like, yeah.
I have to wear the, I don't have one of those hats for, I don't know what they're actually called, but I know exactly what you mean.
Oh, you mean like the
big,
brown, the woven
grass,
reed ones. Yeah.
Keep that one. Yeah, green thorn pepper's right. People are literally running from the cities.
Yeah.
And it's kind of been that way for the last 2 years. Jumped ahead again. I didn't do it on purpose.
I know. There you are. You were there.
Good. Okay, Kootenays has good pricing. And that would be quite the move.
I'm just because we're talking about it. I meant to ask Ren's Homestead. Sorry, you were typing in there live the other night, and I was kind of off whatever, but I was still listening. But your aerial shots of your place are amazing. How many acres do you have? It's a gorgeous. If you get a chance to go and look at Ren's videos, you have the most beautiful, idyllic property. Mm-hmm. Absolutely gorgeous. Mm-hmm. I have to say.
I would agree.
Kootenays, there's zone 7. That'd be nice. We're 5B, maybe 6 or approaching 6, but
yeah, still 7 would give you more flexibility. That's for sure.
Yeah,
it's always that thing of like, if you could be in a warmer environment, et cetera, it'd be easier. But I think there's always challenges, right?
So Joyce, you'd be looking for a less acidic type tomato, right?
Well, I was going to say, if it's less acidic, the yellow varieties would definitely.
Mm-hmm.
The white Thomasol would be.
You should try. Should try the white Thomasol tomato. They're quite nice. I know there's some of the paste tomatoes are less acidic as well, but they're not tasty.
Well, not if you're just going to eat them.
Not for just eating, but
I know the Amish paste is less acidic, because that's when you make it into sauces and stuff, sometimes you have to watch that.
That's a crazy rent price. Oh my gosh. Wow.
That is crazy.
Yeah, I think you're right, Green Thumb Pepper. You basically got to get out of that commuter
zone.
Well, or even that window, because people aren't really commuting anymore, but there's that limit to where they'll go to, I guess you could say, right?
It's like a band of convenience, right?
It's like what you were talking about even with the hunting the other day. You know, like you've got that, if everybody from the city decided to go and start hunting and getting their own food, there'd be a circle that they would be willing to go to before it became like,
and there'd be nothing in that circle.
Yeah. And that's the same circle for the housing real estate market as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I caught up. Yay.
They have 64 acres. It's very, very, very nice 64 acres. Mm-hmm. You got a gem there. A blue chocolate tomato.
That one sounds interesting.
Yeah.
We'll have to look into that.
Yeah. So that would be another one. But that's what we were thinking as well, Green Thumb Prepper, about the acidity. And I do think that the yellow... the white Thomasol would be another really nice one.
One I would, if it's acidity, one I would definitely say to stay away from, which we don't grow anymore, is black plum. They were crazy acidic. Mm-hmm. They were so acidic that you could add them to some of the less acidic ones and
soup it up. So
the flavor was a little bit, but they kind of compensated for it.
Yeah,
but.
Deep red inside with an almost black skin.
Interesting.
I like the sound of that.
That's very interesting.
So are they actually called blue chocolate? as I'm adding to my tomato
It
list.
sounds like it. We'll look into that. I think going back to the idea of like how much to plant of something too,
and then you get talking to people, and then you have to change your whole plan.
You add things.
Add things.
But there's always that. Excuse me. There's always that thing, and most of us in here are homesteading or growing food in some capacity. So I think we probably all understand it. But when people are starting out, there's always that like how do you call it, like temptation that's sparkly, shiny, like, oh, I want this and that and one of these and one of those, and like, but you
awesome.
can't actually do it all, right? But gardening's nice in a way because it's like the tomato talk. You can have a lot of variety of tomatoes and it'd still be manageable. When you get into some of the other things, like you were talking, like carrots and stuff, might be harder to do that. Like the squash is the perfect example, right? You can't really. The variety's harder to have.
Yeah, well, no, you can have the variety, but you're limited to 4 or 5.
Yeah, unless you're going to buy them all the time.
Yeah. But that's one of the things that, well, anybody that watches any number of our videos knows we preach a lot about with the seed saving and the importance of it, and not being dependent on, the middleman or the suppliers, being able to do it yourself as much as you can.
Well, it's kind of...
And just putting a little bit of planning in.
Well, the notion of planning, and like there's been a lot of discussion about property and property values and this, that, and whatever. And it's like, it is that thing of making what you have work well. Obviously, if you get an opportunity like Ren's Homestead, you guys had a great opportunity there.
Oh yeah.
And we're able to make it happen. So that's awesome. But I don't know. I think that's part of the figuring out how much to plant, how to save the seeds, how to keep it going. Like it all bleeds in together, because that's the way you get away from the commercialism, which doesn't free up money in the short term, but it does free up money in the long term, for lack of a better way to put it, provided you still have money coming in from an income.
Sorry, I'm giggling at the Bucket List Homestead and the fact that we're supposed to be a support group, and now she's getting more seeds.
Well, we support you in getting more seeds.
There you go. That's the kind of support group this is. You could never have enough seeds.
It's true. You should see the volume of some things that we like today, because we're not going to grow the big blue squash, the Keeper Maxima.
But we still saved hundreds of seeds out of them,
because we might need them.
We might need them. You never know.
Well, we don't.
Where's our? Let me get the. Hang on here. I'll just show them the bag of our Tolly's peppers. Okay, just in case anybody needs some Tolly's Italian peppers. So this is the sort of seed obsession we're talking about. So that is our big bag of the Tolly's Sweet Italian from last year. This is the 2020. So even though we had that many seeds, we doubled it and saved twice as many from 2021.
And that's just one variety.
And that's just one variety of peppers. Seed saving is definitely an obsession. Seed collecting.
Green thumb pepper's got an excellent point. Circle of life and control of your food. I think that's going to be a big thing, and that's where figuring out like how much you need. I sound like a broken record, but how much you need, what you enjoy, what you like to eat and whatnot, but then how to keep it going. Like they're all equally as important, because if you can't, you're always going to have something that you do put and take. Like we've said that we're doing corn put and take, and if we get to the point we can't do corn, well, we're not doing corn anymore. But reducing your dependency is not a bad thing. And part of that reducing the dependency is also having the support net, because even though we don't all share physical community, as in we're not all neighbors, when it comes to plants, we can, if we all do it well and keep the seeds pure and that sort of thing, you can share with each other. Yeah. Which is awesome, because,
No, that's the whole thing. And sorry, scroll back up again. Sorry, it's kept moving down. Remy's saying he's overwhelmed by the seeds, which definitely can happen. And then you have to lay it all out and go, okay, well, what am I actually growing? There was another one.
Mm.
Yeah, the seeds to start a civilization. You know, it is true though. Like we talk about this, and it's important to have those. We
Mhm.
talk about this with the chickens, and everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people, especially even people that we know day to day that we see, don't understand why we have so many chickens.
But but you got to think about it too. Most people have grown up in a society where all they have to do is go and buy more.
Yeah,
And you talk to people that are in like our grandparents' age and stuff, and they'll remember a time when you couldn't just do
go and
that.
get it.
Yeah, you couldn't just go and
Yeah.
get it.
And that's the thing for us with the seeds, with the chickens, is
And that's
if there
why
weren't any more, it doesn't matter.
and that's why there is no such thing as a seed problem, and you never have enough seeds, exactly like me and you, Acres and Caitlin's Family Farmstead, are saying, because at the end of the day, that's life.
Yeah.
Literally, that's life.
Yeah. Like
And figuratively.
there has to be thousands of seeds in each of these bags. And it's funny because me and you, where did it go there? She said about they might not all germinate.
Oh, the low germination.
So when we started the seeds in our video there last time, we had a plan. And we said, okay, we want to start 40 totally sweet Italian peppers. So what do? We put in 80 seeds just in case. And you know what happens every single time? We do it every year. They almost all germinate. And then we go, well, we can't waste them. And so then we have to plant them. So anyways, it's one of those things. Like you said, low germination rate, but it never happens that way. And then we end up with so many plants. And then we do it all over again with saving so many seeds.
Yep. Just yearly cycle.
Yeah.
Remy says his girlfriend's not going to like us anymore. And yeah, I think Bucket List Homestead, you don't want to rely on the grocery store. I think that's the one thing, and I'm gonna, because Green Thumb Prepper's in here too, and I think you're quite immersed in the prepper side of things, like the prepper YouTube community. It's like, that's just it. You're reducing that dependency because stockpiling rice and things that you can't produce. Well,
totally
maybe
makes
you
sense.
can produce rice, but totally makes sense.
Well, that's an experiment.
But at the same time, having the skills to do that over and over again, that's a level up. And that's what homesteaders do.
Yeah.
So I never really understood why more preppers don't get into the gardening and the seed saving and stuff. Not that everybody can.
I'm going to say it, and I'm not, because we are preppers as well as homesteaders, so whatever you want to call that. But the one thing I will say is I think, and I'm not trying to sound whatever, but I think a lot of preppers that are vocal are not the ones that are doing what we're doing. I think there's a lot of preppers out there. Green Thumb Prepper, same thing. He's doing what we're doing. He's trying to grow it, trying to get to that point. And I think there's a lot of them out there that are like that, but they don't publicize it.
It's not grand, and it's not doom and gloom. It's not sensational. It's not glamorous. Yeah. It's, to most people, it's like, oh, you've got a bag of seeds.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of going way back to Crucy's thing about people thinking you're weird. Most people would think that's weird. Oh, yeah, I've got a.
Why would you do that? I can go to the store and buy them.
I can buy a pepper for.
But it's like Green Thumb Prepper saying they're already controlling seed situation.
Well, this is the thing about seed banks too, right? Because seed banks are really good, but they also potentially, depending on how they're funded and how they're structured, if there's something you can get access to, they're great. If there's something you can't get access to, they're not helpful.
Yeah.
To the vast majority of us.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother thing.
But the bees, we've. I'm curious. I hope that you get into it, and we'll kind of pick your brain on it, because we've hummed and hawed back and forth on the bees, but we're just so nervous because so many people we know have not had success with bees. And it's quite the investment to get into. For us, we're going to look into maple syrup on our trees first.
It's also a different, compared to other livestock, it's a different skill set.
Yeah.
So we're approaching that cautiously. It doesn't mean we're not going to do it. It's not going to happen this year.
No.
For us. But
I think the maple syrup and the trees will be at tap before we do bees. But I'm always curious when other people get into it, because
and how they find it and stuff.
Exactly, because maybe we're blowing it out of proportion. Maybe it isn't as difficult as it seems. But
we only know a few people that have them. But everybody who there's only one person that hasn't had terrible things happen. But hello, Billy Lee.
Yes, hello. How are you? Hopefully well tonight.
See if I can scroll down without it skipping ahead. Yeah,
it skipped ahead.
It's so annoying.
There you go, right there.
Okay.
No, we go up higher maybe. Because she said about the. Okay, well. Nope, keep going up.
Oh boy.
What the heck is going on?
There we go.
There we are. Sorry, I see something about Ice Age Farmer there. Where did I see that?
Yeah, for people who watch Ice Age Farmer, you'd understand.
Yeah.
I'm going to start talking a lot of projects. Then we blew it all. We had finally
blew it all to move. Yeah, but you know what? Sometimes things happen for a reason. And to be honest, you had pictures of your old place there, and what you have now, it's worth it. It is worth it. You will love it in the end, and all that hard work will definitely pay off. Stuck in ICU. Oh, thoughts with you. My name is Chrissy, does gardening and stuff, and I'm a vegetable garden addict.
There's nothing wrong with that.
We support you.
We'll enable you.
And enable you, yeah.
It's like it could get to the point that you become seed dealers.
Well, I don't know. Chrissy does save a lot of chive seeds. Like we were watching Angie open her seeds and somebody else, and we're like, wow, you must have one amazing chive patch. It must be amazing.
Oh yeah, because that's a lot of seeds.
I'm excited because we've got a lot of chives to get planted and figure that out. But
well, we should actually start some of them when we start her, because you can start them quite early with the onions and stuff. I do agree with Bucket List Homestead. Hate wasting plants. We do the same thing. Like when we start everything, we usually end up with a couple seed starts that they just don't do well, and we do call them out. But
very few though.
Very few usually. We kind of try to. We find a space for almost everything.
It's like the tomatoes at the end of the year when you're really just done and you don't want to do any more canning and you've no need for them, yet I can't stand to waste them. So I'll still bag up all the green buggers and I'll bring them in and I'll try and ripen them and they'll rot and they'll whatever. And I'm like,
some do, some don't.
And it's like, why did I do this? I didn't even need it. Why? Why? Torture.
Hi, Scott.
Hey, Scott, how are you?
Yeah, homesteading is pretty much a prepper's finish line. Yeah, I would agree with that in a lot of ways. And I also agree with M. Pedmar. It takes a large lot of rice to make a sustainable crop.
Yes.
That's the dilemma with all the grains. Grains are the hard one because you're basically growing grass. They're all some relative of grass. And even though they do produce a lot per, like one seed will produce you a lot, it's by volume nothing, right? And that's the problem, right? When they become we go back and forth on that because we'd like to try stuff and we're gonna try a few things this year as experiments to propagate. So like you said, we might try eating a little bit or whatever, but
it's mostly just to see if we can do it, right?
We may do it with a barley and a wheat and an oats and a whatever.
Yeah, well, we have the wheat seeds.
I have some barley. I think it's I can never say it right. False barley. We have a few that we'd like to try just from a propagating perspective, see how it goes. Yeah. And then kind of go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Honey Badgers has got a good point.
Never tell all that you have.
Yeah, and this is where we have a bit of a hard time because we're trying to show people that and again, we're talking to the converted here, but we're trying to show people that you actually can do this. It's not just an empty promise. It's like we grew 3,000 pounds of food, and that's a lot.
And most of it was from our own seeds.
Well, and there's animals in that too.
But that's still,
when you actually break it down, most of it was the vegetable side of things. Like, I think that's the big take-home message. Animals are great and they have their place, but I would caution anybody getting too animal heavy. Yeah. Yeah. You're better off. I'm not a vegetarian and I don't believe in some of the edicts about things like, cows are ruining the world and this, that, whatever, because it's never usually the animal that's the problem. It's what we do to them or how we raise them and that sort of thing that's usually the problem. But at the same time, humans probably should be eating more of a vegetable part in their diet, because when you look at it when you're doing it yourself, you can produce a lot more vegetable matter than you can.
But you still need the animals to help supplement the growth of those vegetables. So.
Yes, and they provide extremely useful products too.
What you say that this is our seed bank. That's what we're really hoping to do with the Canadian Seed Challenge. And it doesn't, obviously we're not just talking Canadian, because I'm sure there's ways you can figure out sharing out other ways too. But that is what we really were hoping to kind of develop, is that ability to share and source seeds from within and not have to depend on, companies that are controlling how much is distributed, what varieties you could get, all these sorts of things. Because if you have a community or a little, like you say, a seed bank that is basically a bunch of people that do it and share amongst themselves, then you'll never not be able to get what you need, because if you have a big enough network, somebody's got it.
I like that. We'll call you Green Thumb from now on. Yeah, that is easier to say. Like your name, like your channel name, but it is easier. Yeah. Bucket list. I like that. That's why you're my people. You don't think getting excited about an envelope of seeds is weird. Oh, not at all. No. We've been this is another part too, right? Of you maybe can't do everything, and we're not saying that we're not going to do bees, but we right now can get actual local honey just down the road, which is kind of nice. And we don't go through it. We ration ourselves, because it's not something we can produce ourselves right now, but we're kind of taking advantage of that fact that we can get that.
Well, and that's the other part though still, and I say this to you all the time about, if you have a community member that does something that you might not do, to support them keeps the community working. It's a give and take type thing, because you've got, I'm going to say it, going back to the old way of living, that's what it was. You had a shoemaker, you had the guy who did the dairy, you had the guy that did the pork, you had the guy, and everybody just traded and bartered and whatever, and it worked. And I know it's totally disillusioned to think that we can go back to those sorts of times. It's just not feasible. But at the same time, we need to find some sort of step back that puts the value back into what those people are doing.
That locally based economy where you have skilled,
get to the farm, hello,
people who have skills, like you said, the shoemaker, the candlestick maker, the whatever,
butcher, the baker.
That's the real Great Reset. Don't know if that's the direction that they're
that's not the direction they want to go, but that's what needs to happen, or we think should happen.
I have heard that about the Beekeeping for Dummies book being comprehensive. I think I've actually read parts of it. I don't have a copy, but I think years ago, I think it's been around for a while. I think I took it into the library actually. We have done some looking into it, but
so, Caitlin, do you guys have like a evaporator type thing, or do you just have a homemade little? We're thinking just kind of like you take an open fire and you put the breeze blocks and you set the catering, the silver things on top to evaporate it out, and just do it outside. Because, like you say, we're only going to do a few trees just for personal use. We're not selling it. We're not whatever. Anyways, I'm curious on what method you use with that, because we had one of our subscribers sent us a bunch of pictures on Instagram of his setup and what he was doing, and same thing, he had some great tips on the maple syrup stuff. So unfortunately he was not living anywhere near us, but
our downside right now with the maple syrup is they're not close to the
trees are far. We need those ponies to start earning their keep.
That'll be, as funny as that sounds, that'll be task 1. And if we can master that task, then we are probably getting pretty close to being good to go.
Thank you, Angie. Thumbs up, everybody. We're actually not doing too bad. 20 thumbs up. That's pretty good.
No, that is pretty good.
How much for the Ziploc magazines? Though, you know what? The other thing that's really, really nice about these is, so we only keep 2 years worth of seeds, unless for some reason there's a crisis and we don't get seeds one year. We then keep, obviously, the older seeds. But what we don't use of the older seeds then just becomes chicken feed.
Especially with peppers and squash.
Yeah.
If you collect a lot of them, it's still feed you can put into the grain mixture and soak for them.
Yeah. And the beans, I mean, we eat them. Whatever we don't use, we cook and eat. So
Dave Knight has lots of black walnut trees, so he's going to farm squirrels and the new superfood squash to save the world.
There you go.
The only problem with squirrels is they only have young in the spring, which makes them slow to reproduce.
Yeah, because they don't produce once.
Because there's an interesting.
They're not like rabbits.
No, there's an interesting thing with like chickens. The digression here, but the reason chickens have meshed so well with humans is because they really already had the adaptation to take advantage of extra food, because their ancestors evolved in bamboo forests where when the bamboo goes to seed, there's just food everywhere, and then there's none. So when the food is available, the chickens, the wild jungle fowl, have lots of babies. Mm-hmm. So when you suddenly give them a steady food source, they always have lots of babies.
Yeah.
I'd be curious. I don't think squirrels can do that. I think they are pretty seasonal. But...
Well, I think we're going to have to start dealing with rabbits on our property this year. We're getting overrun with rabbits.
I do agree, Green Thumb. If you do the fodder, because we even do just the soaking, and it's still, the sprouting still gives you more mass, more weight, right? Which is kind of nice because it's a little bit of a hack or a cheat, right? You're giving them a better nutrition than just the dried grain, and
it makes the food go further.
Yeah, because they're physically eating more of it and some more water too. It didn't jump ahead. We keep wanting to revisit the fodder for the rabbits, but that's another discussion.
We'd like to. It just is not on the priorities thing right now. That's all. Thanks for coming in, Remy. We appreciate it. Have a great night.
And Miles has got it. Anybody want to buy an 8? I think you missed.
You weren't there.
You weren't there last week where we did that. It's like, anybody want to buy some squash seeds?
Yeah.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, you and your creepy Sesame Street voice guy.
Everything goes back to Sesame Street. The Muppets. They make the world.
You can tell that you and Miles know each other because he did that completely on his own. You didn't even instigate it.
I know. And good night, bucket list.
Yes.
No worries. We're probably going to try to keep this one a bit shorter than some of ours, but we'll see. We're having good conversation as per usual.
Something went weird there. It's all over.
Always jumps.
Okay. Well. Okay.
There we go.
There we go.
Yes, and Green Thumb has got it. Animals require a lot of feed.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? They're consumers just like us.
That's where we've had some big discussions and really trying to fine tune it to, and we say this all the time, when it comes to the animals, yes, there is extreme value in growing your own livestock, your own produce, everything. You know the quality, you know what's going into it. It is priceless, but in the same sense, it's not priceless because you still need to be able to afford to do it. And that's the big thing where we're coming down to really fine tuning it now, because we branched out and tried a lot. I mean, people that have been following us from the beginning of our channel know we've had goats, we've had cows, we've had pigs, and it's just one of those fine tuning it down to what is actually manageable and affordable to keep you going in the right direction. Because at the end of the day, in a prepping mindset, we don't want to be in debt, because if we're in debt, we're in trouble.
Wow.
You want to be. And so it was a case of, bringing things into check a little bit, reining it in, I guess you could say, to keep things going in the right direction.
within your means, for lack of a right way to put it. Yeah. That is interesting, Ren's Homestead. And I totally get that about the native pollinators, because that goes back to like the ecology of your homestead, right? It is important because your garden isn't like isolated from everything that goes on around it. So I could totally see that in the right circumstance. The problem is, for a lot of locations, you don't have that because the local environment is not as healthy as it could be. So when you do things to basically improve all of that, I could see that totally.
Green tomato pies.
Oh, I've heard of
That's
those.
Very intriguing.
Never tried it. And green.
I do like fried green tomatoes with breakfast. I think they're really good.
Green tomato ketchup. There's things we could do with it.
green tomato ketchup is tasty. Really, I made the orange ketchup this year with the yellow tomatoes, but might have to try that one.
We're going to the conference, Scott. Speaking at it too, actually.
Yeah.
So
where did you see that?
You put it right there. So who's all going to the conference?
Yes. Yeah, I think there's been quite a bit of discussion. I know Remy just left, but Remy was hoping to be coming down from New Brunswick to go to it. And I believe Thorhaven, Me and You Acres, Plowman's, Bucket List. I mean, there's quite a few that are expressed an interest in going, so I think it'll be great.
We're behind. I'm sure a lot of people have already said
they probably have.
But yeah, the diverse planting and it's like that balance of biodiversity within your homestead ecosystem and what it can do. It's not always just biodiversity; it's also biomass, right? They're connected, but they're not the same thing necessarily.
Yeah, I'll have to check out the this channel. The we noticed it last year. We commented, didn't we? At the beginning of the year, we went out and we noticed that there was no pollinators. There was no bees at all. And we had no early crop, no early apples.
Well, and we also didn't get the drop in of some of the migrant like
birds and stuff.
The Tennessee warblers are a big one that shows up, and
because they pollinate too, right?
Yeah.
And we had nothing, but then we had a amazing late season apples.
So something
happened. What would that be? Early June, probably.
Yeah.
You know that for some, or no, I guess it'd be late May. Because early May is when the apple blossoms start, right? Yeah, so early May, there was nothing at all. And we were like, oh, there's going to be no apples. I even did a video on it saying about how pitiful it was that there was no fruit on any of the trees. And then
we kind of had to eat those words later.
Yeah, we had a bumper late season crop of apples that were amazing.
So whereabouts, like not exactly, but relatively speaking geographically, are you get to the farm? I'm just curious. You must be in quite a cold zone to not have the tomatoes. But green ketchup would be something to try. And yes, create the environment, and the pollinators will show up. And then you maintain the environment so that those populations never dip down to a point where they don't exist. Miles, Chris knows too much about squirrels. Trust me. Yes. We'll just leave it at that.
Don't start.
Oh, that's too funny.
Don't start.
Yeah, 1-2's doing the fodder, but it takes about 10 days. We found we were the same. It was 7 where we used to live. 8 was better. But yeah,
when we tried to grow it here, we tried to grow it downstairs. We still had a light on it up top, but it was so cold. We were about 10 days to have it grown. Because are you doing it in your garage, you said? Is that right?
The temperature makes a big difference.
Yeah. Oh, you jumped. Angie must be leaving. I see a good night to Me and You. If you're still in here, thanks for coming in, Angie. Have a good night. I don't know. You're still way.
Oh, it's so hard to keep up. Okay, there we go. Yeah, soak the seeds, fed the chickens in day 10. Yeah.
Angie was heading out.
We didn't miss her by too much if she's not still here. I'd make a good squash pusher.
He does love the squash.
Well, it's one of those things, right? If you really want to feed yourself, you can grow literally thousands of pounds, or hundreds of pounds, I should say. And there's enough varieties. Like, we all bashed spaghetti squash, but Remy liked it. If he likes it, great. And we could all find 4 kinds of squash from the 4 different species. And the elusive 5th, which we won't speak of right now, but from the 4 species, that you'll find something that you like.
The other thing that we found, as you're talking about the fodder, is the squash. The sheep, like, we dice it up, and the sheep love it. The sheep love the squash, the Canada crookneck.
But we do have to cut it up for them because they don't. Yeah, it has to be cut up to bite size.
Yeah, like we said, we were actually thinking if we grew enough of them next year, we could just toss them through the wood chipper. And you would just chop them up as you needed them for them to eat. Easy to store. goes through the wood chipper, no problem. And there's some feed for them. So we're trying to kind of figure out ways to supplement so that we can lessen our grain dependency.
One thing, get to the farm. We didn't find. We've tried fodder. We've tried growing fodder with a few different things, and we found the best was wheat. Now I don't know the nitrogen content of wheat. We found the wheat was the most palatable, had the least issues with what am I trying to say, molds and that sort of thing, and grew the fastest. Whereas the other ones, and it's probably just our local sources, maybe, or temperatures, or there could be a lot of things to it. They just didn't do as well. And we even tried doing a mixed, and when we mixed in the barley, because I know barley's a staple one when you get reading into like bigger dairy farms and stuff, they'll often use it. It just caused issues. The other one we liked was sunflowers, but sunflowers was a weird one because they tended to grow mold fairly readily, and you ended up you get the tops to cut off, but the bottom wasn't really edible by the time they. It was hit and miss.
Or if we mixed it with like the oats or something like that, you got enough of a sprout that they ate it, but it wasn't great.
But we do need to revisit it because it was a big money saver.
You get moving it up and down, and I'm just like, I can't even see what's going on.
I don't do it on purpose.
Fried green tomatoes, yes.
Oh, you know what? We are at the bottom.
Oh, tomato jam. That's like what some people call like adult ketchup, right? I think so. Yeah, it's good.
Maybe I did miss something. No, I think I'm all cut up. Yay, we're caught up.
So sorry, what's Honey Badger's trying to make?
We might have missed that. It's in the thing scrolling up and down on us.
I don't know. He's in charge of the thingy.
Oh, it's weird because if we stop on it, just so everybody knows, because most of you are in our lives often, when we get behind, if we stop and I go to the cursor and I try to move it automatically goes to the bottom. So then it's like you're going.
Have a good night, Caitlin. Thank you.
Yes,
talk to you next week. So I'm not sure if I missed something there, but
okay. So 1-2 does it on his porch, and on the porch, and it's cold.
Yeah, that's what we found. We were 10 days when it was cold. It did take a lot longer.
Now the advantage to being cooler is we do find you get less mold growth.
Yeah.
So it's like warmer temperatures, it grows faster, but other stuff does too.
Good for the dewormers and stuff as well. Exactly. So we've been kind of playing around with it a little bit this year because, Chris and his squash, he thinks it's going to save the world. So if we can get our animals to eat it as well as us, it's great because see what we're having now is we have a spot in the basement that, because we stored the squash in a variety of different areas so that we could make sure, we were kind of monitoring how it was going to keep. And a lot of it is keeping amazing, but we had one spot, which it must have gotten too cold.
We think it's a colder little area.
It's right in the corner. It was down low to the ground, and we had a couple squash that started to go bad. So we've been chopping them up and testing them with the animals in order to see, what their reaction is.
We say starting to go bad to the point where we probably
couldn't
eat it.
They were still firm enough, but they're not. Yeah. I'm kind of like, we have hundreds of pounds of squash. I don't need to eat one that's going right. Oh, yeah. So I mean, it doesn't get wasted, which is great. But it is interesting that they're loving it chopped up. And if it just means chopping up, that's not a big deal.
And we basically find you can take one squash. So I'm going to pick on Canada crookneck squash because it's simple. You can cut the flesh up, so you can peel it, and the rabbits eat the peels. Amazing. You can then cut the seeds out, and the chickens eat the seeds and kind of all the gucky bit in around the seed. And then if you take the flesh and you chop it up into the cubes, the sheep eat it. So it can't hurt. It's something you can grow on a small scale. You wouldn't scale it up to feeding an entire herd of cows or something, but on a small scale, you can do a lot with it. It's
just a little something like when we could use the squash as the treat for getting them to come into the barn in the morning rather than using grains.
Well, that's maybe the end goal, because that's the one thing with the Icelandic sheep. You can't herd them well. So you need to get them to come to you, and food is the best reward. So we do feed grain, not so much because they actually need it.
No, but it gets them to do what you want
And
them
it
to
keeps
do.
them in a routine, right? So we only feed the grain you basically at night, although we do have one group on a different schedule because we run them out of the barn at night and they come in the daytime. So they get it when they come in, but we just feed it once and it's not a lot, but it's just that mental thing of, oh, I get something. And so I'm going to come.
They get about half a cup per animal.
But if the squash will maybe work for that or as a supplement to reduce, we can reduce the grain more. Then
well, and the other thing too is like what Chris was saying. I mean, you scoop out the seeds, the chickens love those. If we peel it, the rabbits love the peels. It's so peculiar because they don't like the actual squash, but they love the peelings off the squash.
Yeah.
So weird.
Well, and this is the thing about the squash too, is to keep plugging squash, because you're right, Green Thumb. It just creeps and spreads, which makes it really low maintenance if you put it somewhere that it doesn't matter that it does that. I think that's one of the arguments for it sometimes in gardening is it's like, yeah, but it takes up so much space and it doesn't look nice. And it's like, I'm going to say this. When you're just trying to feed yourself and
doesn't matter.
Survive, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And that's what we always do. We usually plant it along the edge of the garden, and then we just constantly pull the tails and the vines so that they're growing out into the grass instead of growing into the garden. Eventually they kill the grass, which is what we like anyway.
Well, yeah, they do quite well with it. But then you have a relatively quick harvest that you don't have to process it all. But it is delayed because now we're getting to that point where they store, but they don't all store indefinitely. So you do, that's the one little hidden piece. You do have to keep checking it, make sure that something didn't go bad. But 1-2 has a good point about the sheep. So something that we learned fairly early on too was sheep that are well taken care of. I don't know if, I think I remember you have the same problem, are loud because they associate you with food. And
a loud sheep is a really well looked after sheep. A quiet sheep usually is not as well looked after.
Yeah. I think it's for whatever it's worth. I think, isn't it Great Britain? They use that as a sign for welfare stuff. They're bigger on that, but yeah, because then they're associating you with whatever.
But yes, this time of year, I don't know when yours were bred. Ours were bred beginning of December. We're just coming into the peak of them now. Like up till this up till this point, they've been pretty, not docile, quiet. But now we're starting to see, as we're coming into, would be what, 3-month mark now?
Yeah, about that. Well, at the earliest.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that we actually starting to really see. Okay, some of them are starting to get round, and they're consuming a little bit more. Like we've upped the hay; they're now getting
bred in November, due in April. Oh, so they're getting quite close.
Yeah, you're a month and a bit ahead of us. So we're just starting to notice that ours are needing more feed. But
they let you know.
Yeah, we've only upped it a little bit. Like the hay has gone up a little bit, but the grains we haven't changed. It's just they're getting what, an extra quarter of a square bale of hay,
something like that. They're pretty thrifty
for them all, but
doesn't feel like they're thrifty some days, but they are pretty thrifty that way. But that's awesome that you're trying to make it to the conference. That's
cool. Really cool.
It's going to be pretty good.
It's one of those things, and I'm trying not to get too hyped up about it because I know it's the first time they're doing it, and it's not going to be, but it'll just be so nice to meet so many people that we've got. I'm going to say built a little bit of a relationship with, and we've watched these American, the Homesteaders of America conferences and whatever, and it's nothing like that at this point. It's the first one ever, but it doesn't mean it won't go to that, which I think is super, super exciting.
Green Thumb would definitely be close enough to be able to come.
Yes, it's in Lanark.
May 7th.
Yeah.
It's the Eastern Ontario
Homesteading Conference.
Yeah, but it's getting bigger than that.
But there's people from Quebec, New Brunswick, all sorts of places coming because I don't think there's ever been one. I mean, we've looked when we started seeing a year ago all the ones about people posting their lives from the Homesteading of America One, people started posting live reels from it and everything. And we were like, oh, I wonder if they do something like that in Canada. We couldn't find a thing about it. And then somebody mentioned on one of the Facebook groups, the Homesteading Canada or something, about this Eastern Ontario conference. And we were like, oh, that's actually, it might have been the Ontario Preppers one. I don't remember.
I don't remember where we
Anyways, good night. And Padmar, thank you for coming in.
Yes, thanks for coming in.
So anyways, it's kind of fun. Chris is going to speak at it. And I think there's some other, there's 6 different speakers for sure already.
I think we're doing we
might do a round table
at it too.
And then there's going to be some vendors and things like that as well. And I know some people have even just talked about they're just going to bring some merchandise and stuff like that to just give away and share with friends and stuff that they've gotten over the YouTube. So I think it'll be kind of really exciting. Well, I'm pretty excited about it. Anyways,
be pretty awesome to actually like physically, because we've physically been in the same spot as a few people, but it'll be nice to meet, actually meet. I mean, we've met everybody, but
in person,
I mean? Actually meeting them in person. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just something about that.
There is. It becomes it's like taking your relationship to a whole new level. It is. There's something about it. So anyways, we're very excited, and I really hope that it goes well. And I believe, and I'm sorry if I'm putting this out there and it's not quite who's organizing it, but I believe it's Marcy from Learning Curve Acres. She's playing a big role in organizing this conference. So hopefully if she ends up needing help with anything in future years, she will reach out. But hopefully I think she's got her under control for this year. And she was saying that she was going to have posters and stuff going up shortly and sending out some information for us to be able to share and things like that. So keep
watching the space.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically north of Brockville by about an hour and a half.
Well, it's about an hour and a half from us.
Yeah, so it's about maybe an hour and 45 minutes.
Because like you'd be better to kind of cross.
No, Chrissy'd probably be better pulling up.
Oh, really?
Be quicker, yeah. That would probably be quicker.
Yeah.
If you are coming, which we think you should. But yeah, it's just north of Perth. So I want to say Perth's about an hour and a half from Brockville.
Yeah.
Might be a little less. Depends. I haven't really driven that direct route in a while.
We'll all be filming live from it just because.
Yep.
We'll be like, live from the homesteading conference.
That'd be awesome.
Oh, it'll be crazy. It'll be fun. But it'll be very nice to meet some wonderful people. And then share our experience. That's for sure.
And just from talking to people in lives and over YouTube and that, it sounds like it's growing pretty quickly.
Yeah,
it sounds like it's going to get
the hype is starting now.
Yeah, which is awesome. I think.
Yeah. I didn't realize when we got all excited and planning about it that it was Mother's Day weekend, but that's okay.
Further east.
Quebec is the Middle East of Ontario. Oh boy. I imagine, well, I don't know how it works because eventually they'll develop some sort of Canadian one that travels around.
Well,
same way the American one does.
I'll say this, not speaking for Marcy, but because she's tried organizing. They tried organizing it 2 years ago. Obviously, it didn't happen. They tried again last year. It didn't happen. I think there's, even though they haven't been able to have it, it's gained traction. Let's just put it that way.
Well, and you could only put so much effort into organizing something when you don't know if it's going to go or not go. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's one of those.
So I think they started with that Eastern Ontario to kind of keep it geographically discrete, but then at the same time it's grown much more than that.
Yeah.
Already. It hasn't even happened yet. So that's pretty awesome. But yeah.
It'll be good. It'll be worth going for sure. But on that note, my dear.
Yeah.
We said we were going to behave and not run all night tonight.
We were going to try to keep it to the 2 hours.
We're going to try and,
pretty darn close.
Our new goal is to try and keep it to 2 hours.
Well, unless we've got, we do a round table or something like that. That's different. Yeah. Oh, and for everybody who's in here, next Tuesday night, we're going to be hosting the roundtable discussion. So it'll be us, Thorhaven Farms, Me and You Acres,
And
and
Rem's.
Rem's family, and it should be a good one.
It will be.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit different. It'll be a little different format because I don't know, for those who have seen the roundtable before, it's kind of the four of us
hashing out all your
questions
answers.
and thoughts and whatnot. And but yeah, they're fun. They're interesting. They're thought provoking. What is it? It's food for thought or thought for food, and a lot more than that. So
yes, yeah. Chris is putting a lot of effort into his plans for it.
There won't be a simple short answer for anything.
No. That's honey badgers will love that. Everything will be long-winded.
We'll keep it discreet. We're gonna do
I always joke with him. I'm like, can you just give us the Coles Notes version? Just give us the Coles Notes version. But he never does. The peasants, just lower class peasants.
Yes, but I don't know. There's power with that. It's like there's a lot of power in that bag of pepper seeds.
No, they're not spicy ones.
Not that kind of power. There's a lot of potential sitting there.
Yeah.
That we all have the potential to have a lot of. Individually, we have no impact, relatively speaking, but collectively, we have a big impact. So, if I would leave it there,
yeah,
because that's a bigger discussion. But hopefully, everybody has a great night and a great rest of the week, and we'll definitely catch up. What's the most important thing for Homestead?
This story would say the will of the gods, and we're going to say it's squash.
Squash is only one. Remember, squash has friends. We just haven't discussed squash's friends yet.
Prepare yourself for the squash's friends video. What were you going to dress up as for it? What were you guys talking? You were talking about dressing up for
a cooking show, but that wasn't the squash one.
Oh,
what do you mean for the round table?
I don't know. Anyways, there was something about dressing up. We'll just leave it as that.
I'll always bring up squash.
Yeah. It'll always be squash. The power squash. If it's not doom, it's squash.
Squash counters doom.
There we are. Okay.
It's like one of those.
It sounds like a video game.
Card games. I see you impending doom, or I
counter with squash.
I counter with squash. Squash beats impending doom. There we go.
Yeah. Chris is Chris with the long answers. Yep.
Impending doom with the squash.
Yes.
Impending squash.
All right, everybody. Have a fantastic rest of your night. Have a great week and weekend. We will see you next week.
Yes.
And we're all looking forward to this roundtable discussion next Tuesday. Same time, same place, just different people.
We'll see everybody later.
Bye for now.